Welcome to the Gals Guide podcast. Join us on an adventure to get to know famous and infamous women from around the world. Each of our presenters has a pick. Is she ancient history? Is she breaking news? Is she safe for work? Well, that's up to each presenter. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back. I'm Barb, and I'm joined by Riwu and Bonnie, sharing our Caribbean gal picks. Bonnie has already talked to us about the magnificent Shirley Chisholm, and
Before we dive back in?
before we dive back in, I got thrown off there a little bit. Before we dive back in, let's talk about some Caribbean things.
Yes.
I want to know, what is your favorite Caribbean food?
Yeah. You had a hard pause there, like there was a second part to the question.
There's really not, but I had to put some thought into this.
Yes.
I guess I just don't eat a lot of Caribbean food when I'm not in the Caribbean. So
Right,
so
exactly.
It took me a minute to come up with some things.
There you go. Dun, 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 dun. My favorites is a Cubano sandwich. I will sometimes mix it up with a Reuben.
Good.
And then when I order it, I'm like, how would you ever confuse this with a Reuben? A Cuban sandwich is just so flippin' flanging good.
Very good.
Deliciousness of flavors and juiciness and intention. I feel like the intention that is put behind a beautifully crafted Cubano sandwich.
Yes.
I will also go for a jerk chicken at any point, and I will make fun of it. There will be lots of puns about the jerk chicken.
Yes.
This jerk chicken's not jerking me around. You know what I mean? Like, this is not no jerk. I can't
If
stop
the chicken
myself.
wasn't so much of a jerk, we wouldn't have killed it.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
I mean, it just
There you
doesn't,
go.
it just adds to the experience and the love of the jerk chicken in any variety that it comes in. So those two are usually my favorite. And it's very hard to like go past a menu or an option to be like, yeah, but those are going to be great.
Right.
So I need to explore a little bit more and all that kind of good stuff. So also any plantains. I like anything banana, fried, fostered.
Yeah, and they prepare
off
them
the tree. Yes, all
all
of it.
different ways, right?
Yes.
So you can have it it's almost more like a potato dish, or you
Right.
can have it like a dessert.
Or like chips.
Yes.
I've had them
Yes.
dried and they're so
Yep.
good.
Yep.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Lots of variation there. So
They're
good.
delicious. And plantains are so much different than bananas. They've got more flavors going on. They're almost like Shirley Chisholm. They're a little tiny thing and they pack a big punch.
There you go. What a great tie-in
tied
that
it in
was.
just randomly. Thanks, from Bonnie, what about you?
I like stuff like the pepper pot, where it's a
Yes.
bunch of like veggies in there with like either with meat or without meat.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I am at like a phase in my life. I want for like every meal to pretty much just be like fajita veggies. Like
yes.
like that's what I want. for
Probably grown in
everything.
your garden too,
Like, we
right?
go-
Oh, nice.
Like
Yes.
we get hibachi.
Mhm.
We go to Mexican restaurants and I get fajita. Like I just want like just grilled veggies.
yeah.
And if they're spicy,
Mhm.
great.
Exactly.
Like that's all I want.
Yeah, there you go. That's what makes Bonnie
That's all I
happy.
want.
That
It's just
and
like-
a puppy to
Lying
be at
at
your
her-
side.
yeah,
Yes,
lying at your
exactly.
feet.
Lovely.
Don't feed the puppy any of the peppers or anything like
Right.
that. That would not be
That
good.
could be medieval later.
No spicy.
So I like all of that. I like
Sweet.
everything that we've talked about. Very, very good. The Caribbean has such a Creole overlay
Yep.
as well. So anything with Creole, that New Orleans flavors,
Yes.
those gumbos, those etouffees, all of that, red beans and rice, the sausage and rice, all of that kind of stuff.
Bring it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it all. And like I said, when we were talking about the question, I'm like, I had to think a little bit. So I need to work some more Caribbean in my life.
Yes.
I think that's what that is. So
I think that's what I'm going to be looking for restaurants and menus for this month. I'm being
So-
like, hey, it's an excuse to just like get some good, delicious
Absolutely.
Caribbean foods.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I did.
Mhm.
There was somebody, on one of the groups that I follow. They had a Caribbean place kind of down off of Keystone that has been recommended. So
Oh, nice.
We'll have to dig that up. I can't remember the name
Yes.
of it, but getting high reviews and maybe we
And
can
good
get
foods.
our Caribbean fix on.
Yes, and explore new stuff. Like
I
I'll
like
go
it.
off of my, I'll try something different other than my two faves.
Right.
Like,
A little sampler platter would be a good thing.
Right,
Just to
exactly.
just to get you started.
All about
So,
it.
Very good. Very
Well,
good.
who do you have for us, darling?
So this was so much fun.
Yay!
I have Luis Bennett Coverley.
Sweet.
She's known by her stage name of Miss Lou.
Miss Lou.
She was one of the most influential figures in Jamaican history and is hailed as the mother of Jamaican culture.
Nice.
She was born in Kingston, Jamaica, capital, largest city.
Yes.
She was born on September 7th, 1919. And although I wasn't born in 1919, I
Right.
was, however, born on September 7th.
Look
so
at that, sharing
I had
a
a
birthday.
tie right away with her. She was an only child, and she was born to Augustus Cornelius Bennett.
Ooh.
Very formal sounding name.
I know, right? I like it.
And to Corrine Robinson. Augustus was the owner of a bakery in a neighboring little town.
Yes.
And Corrine was a seamstress and a dressmaker.
Nice.
Augustus unfortunately passed when Miss Lou was very young.
Aw.
Her mom became obviously her primary caregiver. But luckily for everyone, Corrine saw the importance of education,
Mhm.
and Miss Lou pursued schooling vigorously. She kind of adopted, she wanted to learn.
Nice.
During elementary school, Miss Lou discovered that she enjoyed literature,
Mhm.
all types of literature, and from an early age, she wanted to write.
Oh,
So that was fabulous.
writer.
Yes, yes. And then her early attempts at writing, some early poetry, was all done in this proper English
Yes.
because that's the way the schools taught them, in proper British English, since they were
Right.
a British colony.
Yeah.
So that plays a part a little bit later, but that's what she dabbled with at first.
Mhm.
She attended multiple colleges in the 1930s. St. Simon's College, Excelsior College, both in Kingston. She also dabbled a little bit studying journalism during this time as
Gotcha.
well.
It's a variation on writing, so it's like, why not see if it bleeds in at all?
Yes,
Yeah, why not?
Yes. As she grew, she observed her life and her local realities and wondered why writers of that time period were writing in Old English instead of in their own dialects.
Yeah, right? Like write how you talk.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So Miss Lou began to do exactly that. She started to write and dabble with her poetry she told about her life experiences, and she
Nice.
used her local Jamaican dialect. She found out when she did, people loved it.
Yay.
The locals really loved it, and they were almost hungry for their own stories in their own words.
Nice. Yeah.
So she saw a connection there. She
Mhm.
really enjoyed that. By 1938, she was asked to give live readings of her poetry.
Oh.
Her first professional debut, by professional we mean there were some money exchange,
I
but
was gonna say,
probably,
somebody paid her at least $1 worth.
and I don't think it was much more than
Not
that.
right.
Exposure.
Right.
Right. Not paid in exposure. Yes. Very
So
true.
Christmas of 1938 was her first professional debut where she did a live reading of her poetry.
Neat.
And it was there also that she met a gentleman by the name of Eric Winston Coverley, who would later, about 6 years down the line, become her husband.
Nice.
By 1943, she was 24 at this time. She was actually sought out to publish a column of her verses in the Sunday Gleaner.
Okay.
The Gleaner was an English published newspaper in Jamaica. It really became considered the newspaper of record for Jamaica. So
sweet.
one of the owners, it was owned by two brothers, one of the owners sought her out and said, hey, have you ever heard of the Gleaner Corporation or something? And she's like, well, yes, I have. And his wife was actually with him, and he's like, I'd like you to come down and bring some examples of your writing. Let's kind of see if we can do something together. And the wife right away said, make sure he pays you.
Oh,
So,
yes.
so that forged a
That is
relationship.
sisters helping sisters.
Exactly.
Right there.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So she got some exposure there. She was continuing her education at this time. She enrolled at Friends College in Highgate, St. Mary, which is it's still in Jamaica, about 50 miles outside of Kingston.
Okay.
And she studied, this is to your point,
Yeah.
Reboot, Jamaican folklore
Yes.
and social work.
Oh, good.
So she was pursuing.
Because then she can write about people.
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's not only could she write about how things were then or how
Yeah.
they used to be, but she could also work in that social element on how things could be. So
Right.
she wanted to tell those
Nice.
stories as well.
And I love folklore. So that idea of tying in that mythology and
Yes.
those urban legends and it doesn't need to be historically true, but it needs to
Right.
teach you something, and writing in that way as well.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
the
lovely.
oral tradition in Jamaica Jamaica is all about the morals and values, and they use the folklore to tell those to tell those stories. And
Oral
what was
tradition
important.
of stories.
Exactly.
100%
Exactly.
lovely. Yeah.
Yes. So she certainly didn't want to lose that, and that's why she started studying there.
Sweet.
As her Gleaner column, it kind of widened her distribution. So a lot more people were hearing about her. She was invited to judge competitions. She was invited to perform a lot more. And not only did she go to perform and judge, but she went to listen. She wanted to hear those stories just as much as she told the stories. And she learned a lot more about what was going on in her country at the time.
Neat.
In 1945, she was awarded a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in England. And when she went, she was the first Black student to study there.
Oh, wow.
She soon had her own radio program called the Caribbean Carnival on the BBC.
Oh, nice.
So, and then kind of in that 1940s era, she was living in England. She would go back to Jamaica. She also moved to New York, and she was kind of honing her crafts.
Yeah.
Right? So she was telling stories. She was also a stand-up comic. So a lot of people enjoyed her humor, but all loved that it was told in kind of the local dialect. She co-directed Day in Jamaica, which was a folk musical that actually played in Harlem, at a theater in Harlem.
Look at that.
And in 1954, that's about the time she married Eric Winston Coverley. He was also an actor, so she was an actress. She was acting in some of these productions as well. He was a radio personality and a calligrapher, so they were kind of all about like the telling of those stories in that time period.
They're kind of like a power couple in that sense too, where they were both in kind of the same vein, but they could, one could be writing, one could be performing, one could be in theater, one could be on radio. Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Yeah. And they were married from 1954 until 2002, which is when he passed.
Gotcha.
And together they had one son. His name was Fabian.
Oh, look at that.
I liked Fabian as a name.
It's a name you don't hear that much. Yeah.
No,
cute.
and I mean,
like it.
don't think of it as Jamaican per se, but, whatever works for them.
Exactly.
Then in the 50s, she went to work for the Jamaica Social Welfare Commission.
Gotcha.
And she also taught folklore and drama at the University of West Indies in Jamaica.
Cool.
She also went on to produce Miss Lou's Views, which was a series of radio monologues. So she used all of these platforms to start talking out about women's rights.
Yes.
About the rights of the poor. She spoke out about class and color prejudice.
Nice.
So she was starting to use her platform to that larger audience for the greater good.
Yeah, nice.
Another tidbit, in 1970, she started hosting children's television programs. She was a little concerned that people were thinking of the Jamaican language as not educated, not polished, not reformed, and that the children who were speaking that language kind of, you don't need to see that.
Right.
Well, she was kind of you do need to see it because
that's our language. Yeah.
It's our language. They're very talented. The show, she had a show called Ring Ding.
Gotcha.
Which aired from 1970 to 1982. So she was actually on air for 12 years.
Oh, nice.
Again, sharing
Doing
these
a children's
stories
show,
of the kids. So she wrote several books in poetry. And again, she was using Jamaican, I think it's patois.
Okay.
It's spelled Patois, but that's their language. That's what their language is known by. It's also called Jamaican Creole, which is much easier for me to say.
Gotcha. It sounds like it's got that French element to it, but yet staying with the roots in Jamaica.
Yes,
okay.
And it's actually heavily English based as well because that's what the kids were being taught at the time.
Yeah.
But lots of influence from West African, from indigenous Caribbean, Spanish, Portuguese, French, other areas, and it's considered a dispersed language, meaning that it's used throughout the Caribbean countries, as well as it's spoken in the UK, it's spoken in Canada, and in some of the southern parts of the U.S. still speak that as well.
Yep.
But her use of Jamaican patois influenced many other writers to be able to incorporate that as well.
Nice.
So she helped legitimize that language,
Right.
and ultimately gave others the ability,
voice.
yes,
Yeah.
to do
Platform.
that as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so she was releasing not only stories, but she was releasing traditional Jamaican folklore or folk music through radio and television,
Neat.
all using this language. So she was praised as an inspiration to Jamaicans as she proudly presented their language, their culture, and to a much broader audience than they would have been able to do.
Right.
And oftentimes, like I said, the non-English speakers or folks who didn't use that proper English were kind of looked down upon.
Right.
And
this is owning it, being like, no.
That's exactly right.
This is ours.
And she wanted that to be known, and she didn't want it to be erased. I think that importantly
and not have
for
to
her.
apologize for it either.
Exactly.
It's like unapologetically, you know, our language.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes the arts, they thought that, you have to be proper English to be in the arts community. And she was bringing to light, no, this is
got to be real.
Yeah, you got to be real. And that's what she was doing. So she got a lot of recognition for that.
Yay.
From 1987 on, she lived in Scarborough, which is very hard for me to say for some reason. I don't know why. But it's in Ontario.
Yes,
and she lived there with her husband. And she remained after her husband's death. So she was there for about 20 years.
Gotcha.
And then that's where she passed at 87. And she passed on July 26, 2006. That date, another one of those dates that resonated with me. That was my dad's birthday. So, but a memorial service was held in Toronto before she returned to Jamaica for that one last time.
Gotcha.
She lied in state at Jamaica's National Arena. She had her funeral in Kingston. And she was interned in the cultural icon section of the country's National Heroes Park.
Nice.
Ooh.
So that seemed very fitting. She was getting some nice recognition.
Look
and
at that.
her legacy does continue on. Archives of her work can be found at the McMaster University Library in Jamaica.
Nice.
As well as the National Library in Jamaica. So either the National Library, she actually made donations to the National Library when she was moving to Canada. And her family made some donations also when she passed.
Gotcha.
Also in Toronto at the Harbourfront Center, they have a venue named Miss Lou's Room. It's a reading and activity space specifically for children. And it was open to the public 1 year after her death, on the anniversary of her death. But so she lived in Toronto for just 20 years. I say just.
Right.
But she made
her influence was
her
big.
influence was there. So
Nice.
the University of Toronto actually established the Louise Bennett Exchange Fellowship in Caribbean Literary Studies. And they do that with the University of West Indies. So they can
it's
share.
like a sister organization,
Yes.
like how you have a sister city.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
exactly.
great.
So,
Neat.
other recognition, she was a member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire.
Oh.
She received the
Wait, that means she's a dame, right? Is it?
I don't know that
that's the OBE.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I'm not sure.
You're good,
They
you're
didn't
good. Okay.
call her dame.
Okay.
So I didn't see that specifically.
Okay, gotcha.
I thought
it's
the
in
same thing.
that lane,
It is.
but right.
It
Okay,
is.
gotcha.
It
Not
is.
the dame status,
Right,
but
exactly.
still very nice. But
Exactly.
still something I don't have.
Right.
So
Right.
It's still tech.
That's
Right.
I'm
Right,
not
there's-
British. I didn't
Well,
even go.
You can buy a square foot of Scottish land.
I know.
That's true.
I will be a lady of Scotland one day.
I love that. I love that you know
For
that.
$39.95.
Exactly. Exactly.
I dig
One
it.
day you will address us all as dame. Thank you very much.
Sure.
She received the Norman Manley Award for Excellence in the Arts in 1972.
Aw.
She was a member of the Order of Jamaica as of 1974.
Cool.
In 1998, the Jamaican government appointed Miss Lou as the cultural ambassador for the nation.
Ooh.
So that was very nice too.
Yeah.
She received a National Black Arts Festival's Living Legend Award in 1992. She had an honorary doctorate, a Doctor of Letters from York University, and that was really specific to her contribution to Caribbean literature and legitimizing the Caribbean dialect.
Yeah.
And then in 2001, she was inducted to the Jamaican Order of Merit by Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh,
So
look
that's kinda
at
cool.
that. Nice.
She wrote, like I said, she wrote many books. The one that stood out to me was a little book about Anansi, who was a sharp-witted and cunning spider who lived for generations on the island of Jamaica.
Oh,
I think that I definitely need to read that.
I'm getting Spider-Woman vibes, which are kind of South American.
Yes.
Oh, that's lovely. Yes.
So books, poetry, short stories,
Yay.
and then some recordings, again, Jamaican folk songs and that kind of thing. A couple just last-minute things. Miss Lou is credited with giving Harry Belafonte.
Oh, good old Harry Belafonte.
The foundation for his 1956 hit Deo.
Yes.
The Banana Boat
The
song.
Banana Boat, yes.
So she became kind of this cultural icon. People
Nice.
would search her out.
Yeah.
So he had a dialogue with her about kind of the direction that he wanted to go with his music.
Yep.
She plugged him into the Jamaican folk song Hill and Gully Rider.
Oh, yeah.
Which I've heard of before.
Yeah. Yep. Not as famous as Deo, but
Correct.
they're not all in Beetlejuice.
That's right. That's right. But Belafonte credited her with the line, "Daylight come and me want to go home,"
Right.
by representing local dialect
Yes,
instead of
absolutely.
the former
Yes.
English.
Mhm.
So that album, that song was very, very successful. Later forms of island music, including reggae,
Mhm.
offered even a more pure form of the language. He kind of
Right.
dipped his toe into it, to borrow a language from Bonnie from earlier. Frankie
Mm-hmm.
Campbell of the Fab Five, a Jamaican band, said all the Jamaican stories and proverbs you hear in Bob Marley's music,
Yeah.
they were kept alive by people like Miss Lou.
Yeah.
So she worked really hard
I
to do that.
Did look up really quickly to see if Bob Marley and her were buried in the same cemetery. They are not.
They
but
are not.
Yes, I thought,
Yes.
and I was just like going, "Oh, that'd be kind of cute."
Yes, but there was definitely a
Yeah.
connection there.
Right.
And
an
she was kind of
inspiration.
a
Yeah.
precursor.
Yeah.
Much like, someone like Sister Rosetta Tharpe was to Elvis Presley.
I know, right? Even though he won't get her. It's fine.
Right. We won't go there. Miss Lou did also work in the film industry.
Oh, nice.
And she was an actress, and she wrote and she directed, but she actually appeared on a couple of films herself. An Italian film called Calypso that was from the late 50s.
Yeah.
And Club Paradise.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that one?
Yeah. Is it Maya Angelou in that?
I don't think
Okay.
so. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay. All right.
But
Gotcha.
Harold Ramis was the director.
Oh, that one with
And-
Robin Williams.
It was with Robin
It's
Williams,
the Robin Williams one. Oh,
Peter
yeah.
O'Toole,
Yes.
Twiggy, Eugene Levy.
It was a great movie, actually. I remember this.
So,
Yeah.
the critics might not have agreed with you.
Because they are wrong. It had all of my favorite. Basically, this movie was made because it had all of Harold Ramis's friends, and they wanted to go play in the Caribbean.
Yes.
This is how movies get made, people.
Exactly right. That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
It's a great movie.
It wasn't a big critical success,
It's
but
not
oh my
supposed to be.
gosh, it just sounded like
It's
so much
everybody's
fun.
in
I
it.
haven't seen it. So,
Well, the company that made it went out of print.
Okay.
I remember
there you
working in the
go.
video store and people asking for it, and I would get super excited and be like, I haven't seen that movie since I rented it as a kid on videotape because it doesn't exist anymore. So it's really hard to find. Although with streaming, I'll have to see if I can find it.
We'll have to see if we can
But
find
it's
it. If we find it, we'll put it in the show notes.
it's so terrible, it's great.
Right. That's kind of what it represented.
But
So
she's in it?
She is in it.
Oh
So
my
she
God.
has a credited role
Oh,
in the
nice.
movie. So yeah, she just was this larger than life character. On the 103rd birthday, her 103rd birthday was marked with a Google Doodle.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, once you make a Google Doodle,
That's how you make it.
You know.
It's either Weird Al parodies your song or you get a Google Doodle.
Right.
That's how you know you've made
There
it.
you go. There you go. But again, she
Aw.
was just talented on so many levels, and the fact that she worked so hard in Jamaica to kind of preserve their culture, their dialect, and say, I don't want to lose this. She said that one of the things that she loved the most was if she was out somewhere and she heard children speaking local dialect or
Aw.
singing folklore songs
Right.
that she grew up with.
Yeah.
She said that preservation is very important, and that means the world to me.
Right. I
So there
love
you go.
that.
Yeah. So she's
Very cute.
a very fun character, and very unlike Bonnie's selection, Shirley Chisholm. Shirley, petite woman. Miss Lou, not petite.
Big lady.
Big lady. She's a big lady. And she just kind of lived her personality large the whole
Yeah.
time. So fun to see on stage. And I watched some clips. And yeah, she's
So
just
cute.
very fun. A lot of times I didn't understand a word she was saying because she was talking in the dialect.
Right,
and
yeah.
I'm like, I don't get that. But the audience was just
Right.
loved her. Just absolutely loved her. I did see some interviews where she spoke proper English.
Where she was trying to,
Yes.
reach a grander audience,
Yes.
but then at the same time be like, okay, cool. So
Right.
now
Now-
I'm going to speak my language in my work. Yes,
That's exactly
I like that.
right. That's exactly right. But she's a fantastic lady. So
Oh, neat.
I love spending time with her for Caribbean Month for sure.
Yeah, I love that she's a writer, she's a performer, she's artistic, but then also a holder of culture.
Yes.
So that's fantastic.
Definitely focused on giving back to her people and preserving kind of their culture, their experiences in their own words. Very
Nice.
important. Yeah.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
dig it.
Yeah. So there you go.
Bonnie, did you have any questions? Dun, 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 dun.
Oh.
Are you going to try to find...
I'm trying to find where we can watch Club Paradise.
Club Paradise, yes.
If we find it, let's put it in the show notes.
I know.
Because I definitely want to watch it. We
It's-
might have to get together and do that.
It's hard to
With
find
some-
one, guys. Yeah.
Maybe with some alcohol too.
Yeah, well, I mean,
That will.
see, yes, it's not great, so you're going to need that.
All right. I'll be prepared.
I watched
I'll
it
be
with the
prepared.
eyes of a child going, this is great. I love Robin Williams.
Right.
Did you find it?
It is on Tubi for free.
Good, because it's out of print, so that would make sense. Yes. Tubi has all the royalty-free
And then you
stuff.
can purchase it on YouTube, Apple TV,
Okay.
Fandango,
Nice.
and Amazon Prime for
Okay.
like $4.
Perfect.
Start with watching it for free on Tubi if you
Yeah.
have that. I mean, just, give it a little...
And
I feel like
maybe
that
have
might
a.
be on
give it a
like
little taste.
Roku might have Tubi for free or something.
Yes, Roku does, because I have Roku, and I do watch Tubi. Sweet.
I think
Good
I
job
have
on
Roku, and I don't even know that I knew that. So I'll have to check that out.
At first, I could not find. Forget what there was an Anita Hill documentary,
Oh,
and the only place I
yes.
could find it like years ago
Mhm.
was on like the Roku free, and I was like, seriously?
Yeah, I think
Like-
Roku bought it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because they did, actually, speaking of Weird Al, they did the Weird Al story was a
Mhm.
Roku original
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah. Yep, exactly. It's worth checking those streaming services.
We'll have to. Yeah, that might be an outing for us or an inning. I don't know.
Right, exactly. Yes, a little stream party, if you will.
Fun.
Sweet. Well, did you want to wrap us up?
I can. That wraps it up
Sweet.
for us this week. Join us next week as another Caribbean gal is picked to share as Gal's Guide podcast continues. Thanks for listening.
Want to learn about more women of history? Gal's Guide opened a unique women's history lending library. Come visit and explore our collection. Learn more at galsguide.org. Thanks for listening.